It's premiere week on The Kelly Clarkson Show, and we've got music's biggest stars all week long. Performances by John Legend, Little Big Town, Machine Gun Kelly, and Common. And appearances by Usher, Josh Groban, Queen Latifah, and more. Get ready, y'all. The Kelly Clarkson Show, all new season 2.
Weekdays at 2 on NBC4.
Stream us live at saga960am.ca. You are listening to New Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to New Theory Radio, the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and we're coming to you live from the Saga 960 AM studio. As I hope all of you are enjoying your brunch during this time, because it is time for brunch. And I hope you're staying indoors, as it is definitely a chilly one outside. We got a jam-packed edition of the show lined up for you this week. It's another NTR Spotlight edition of New Theory Radio. And if you're not familiar with the NTR Spotlight, it's a platform that we've created where we shine a light on creators pushing the scene forward both locally and globally. We kick off the show with a conversation that I had with multi-faceted artist Jasleen Powar, aka Horsepower. This Vancouver native is a rapper, actor, and the host of First We Feast Curry Shop. And she just dropped a new album called Lil Miss Canada. So we talked to her about that, her love for garlic, which is definitely evident during the conversation, and a whole lot more on today's show. And then we welcome singer and songwriter and actor, the multi-talented Rup May-gone. You may have heard of Rup as one half of the award-winning duo Josh, or from his previous roles in such movies like Breakaway and The Black Prince. Now he's playing a duck decoy carver by the name of Amandeep in CBC Gem's new comedy series Decoys. We can't wait to chat with them about that and whether his carving skills are still intact. And lastly, we close out the show welcoming Elizabeth Rodriguez from the Afro-Cuban roots and jazz ensemble Ocan. Their sophomore release, Espiral, comes out on October 9th, and Elizabeth stops by to chat about the project, the group's rich Cuban roots, and their new single, which is entitled Mercedes. All this and more in this week's edition of NTR. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Horsepower here on News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
Hit the bottom of the rock, then I crashed it. Broken brain, open wide when you smashed it.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM, the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is a very special NTR Spotlight edition of the show. And I'm very excited to welcome our first guest. She is known for being a bold woman, a multifaceted artist whose creative mission is to uplift and empower women of color. From rapping to acting and hosting First We Feast show Curry Shop, her creativity has no limits. She first caught the attention of a lot of outlets for her girl power Bollywood rap bangers, and she's been featured by the likes of Vice, Fader, Rolling Stone India, and CBC. And she has a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater, which that definitely explains a lot. It is my homie, the born entertainer and storyteller, Horsepower, is joining us here at New Theory Radio. Can I call you Horsepower, or should I call you Jasleen?
You can call me Horsepower. You call me Horse.
Can I call you Horse for short?
Yeah, I love it.
Well, great to connect with you again. You know, the last time I met you, we were in Austin, Texas, like 2016, I think. And
yeah.
I think you just came off of rocking the stage, and I think we ended up at a Ghostface Killah show and hanging out.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, that was a lit night. But you just dropped a new project, Lil Miss Canada. I got to ask you, what's the story behind it?
Well, Well, it's just a lot. I feel like the last 2 years I was in the States because I was doing the first weekly show, and then I had landed on an O1 visa, so I didn't want to come back. And I'm forced to come back because of COVID. But I was always like the Canadian homie, or like the Canadian girl, the Canadian weirdo. Like, I don't know why they think Canada is so small. They're like, one guy hit me up recently and he was like, I'm coming to Canada. I'll let you know when we can link up. I was like, where in Canada are you going? Like,
yeah, I can just walk and meet you somewhere.
yeah. I was like, dude, does this guy know? Like, because a lot of people think Toronto is the whole thing too. So I was always known as like the Canadian one. And even though the project has nothing really to do with Canada or even anything political, which is something that I do want to venture off and then focus on, but it's more so a breakup EP.
Really? Wow.
I mean, it should have been called Who Hurt You, really. Like, but I'm just talking about my feelings, and my feelings were hurt.
Wow. Well, that's a great. Well, it's not great, but it's an interesting way of putting something together, considering the title of the album and the fact that there's a really interesting photo of you and a young Aubrey Graham on the cover, which again, we all know how hurt Drake has been in his life. So maybe that's a good connection, a good segue that you were able to create.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of Drake in me, but I love his ability to just like go back and forth between like the sentimental and then the aggressive, and he's like totally cool with being a goofball. And he, I would say, is the big face of Canada. So I would like to be his counterpart and be like, Lil Miss Canada. You could take the big lead. I'll be the little girl. But also, I don't know. It just kind of stuck. I think someone was calling me in LA the real Miss Canada.
Really?
And I was like, I'm not the real Miss Canada, because, for me, it's like, okay, if we're going to talk about the real Miss Canada, it's going to be untold stories and people of, who are Indigenous and are actually from this land. Mm-hmm. And then I remember doing this thing about, I think it was like the Great Canadians, when it was Canada's 150th, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Molson Canadian paid me to do this ad where I talked about like inclusion and how great Canada is. And then all the comments when they got posted were just like really racist.
Oh no.
And then for me, it didn't like personally hurt my feelings, but I was like, wow, it's just the irony of me talking so nicely and well of this country, of including people, and like the idea of what a Canadian is, isn't what you think, like a plaid shirt white dude with a beaver chopping down a tree drinking Tim Hortons. It's more than that. And I think it's so funny how whitewashed we have made Canada to look, in a sense of like, when people who are not Canadian ask questions about Canada, they very much think of it that way, like hockey, white guy, red plaid. I don't know, these images, and I'm like, oh, see, in my mind, when I think of Canadian, I think of something so different. But then, so what does like Lil Miss Canada look like? And for me, it's like, it's everything, but it's also not to, because I was kind of unsure to name it that, because I'm not Indigenous, and I feel like, I too am, on this land, but I also feel like that's the story of Canada, and like, it is what it is in a sense. So why can't I be considered Canadian? And why is that? Why am I like still considered like an immigrant when really I'm born here and I'm not seen as Canadian? And I kind of felt like a little superhero hopping around the States, just like Canada on my back.
Yeah, you totally owned it, right? And I think that's important because, you think about the topics you address on the album, outside of it being a breakup album, you talk about sex and you do talk about race and representation. And there's an interesting conversation that's taking place right now. And when we were able to talk about it a few weeks ago on New Theory Radio, especially when WAP came out, with Megan and Cardi, about this empowerment that females are starting to show when it comes to music, and how this should have been shown a long time ago, but because music like hip hop was so male dominated, and there was this idea of how females work within hip hop, there wasn't a lot
that was given that allowed artists like yourselves to be very comfortable and be very open and really own how you feel. Was that, again, it's kind of serendipitous how it kind of worked out when this project came out and how WAP also came out at the same time. But was that something that you try to do a lot in your music when it comes to really empowering who you are and making sure that, hey, when someone listens to a Horsepower record, they're listening to something that's totally real?
Yeah, I think that even prior to WAP, there's a lot of, you know, very sexually liberating music that comes from women, whether it's in the pop world that's somehow tucked away and disguised as something more metaphorical. And then there's, you know, in something like hip hop where you can be blunt and open, but there's so many strong femme rappers who are speaking on the concept of WAP. And I've been rapping. The reason why I started rapping was because I would just get a little lit and I would start freestyling about just the most obscene, vulgar things. And for me, I grew up in a household where, you know, I didn't feel disconnected with the idea of like me being a woman and my sibling, like my brothers being boys. And then I know in South Asian culture, there's a lot of sexism that exists where the girls just don't get the same respect, love, put on a pedestal, like treated like a prince. You know, we don't get that. And then there's this whole different idea of like, to be a son, you know, you give out mithai or the sweets, and then people barely acknowledge when they have a daughter. That didn't really happen in my household. Luckily, like my dad, I'm so happy that he didn't do that. If anything, like I might be the favorite. No, just kidding. But I think like my grandma, she moved here from India and lived with us until she passed away, which was in like 2011. But she lived with us when I was like 5 years old, and her projections of what she thought was right and what she thought women should do. And it's sad that it's coming from another woman that she put so much hate towards, like the idea of me being so liberated. But since a child, she was always like, you talk too much, you are too loud, you are this. And I'm the baby of the family. And I also had the worst Punjabi. So our communication was very funny because I would respond in my best Punjabi, but it wasn't proper or it wasn't kind enough because I wasn't using the proper terms to show respect to the elders. And so we'd always have fights, and I just like always got angry that she just did not like me in my mind, and she didn't like that I was so not a girly girl in a South Asian household. I was treated like a boy, and whatever that means in this idea. And I was loud, and I think it's so funny. It's like, I'm not rapping all these vulgar things because I'm like sticking it to my grandma who told me I couldn't rap. But it was a huge thing where I was like, oh, like you really believe in this, that you are a woman. Like it's coming from you. Like, I wish you were able to do what you wanted to do. I wish you were able to say and think and love and feel all the facets of life. And like, you couldn't. And so you're projecting these things on me as a 5-year-old, as a 12-year-old, as a 17-year-old. And it was just like, oh, that fuel of her saying that, I could just hear the whole world say those things to me and say those things to my mom and my sister and my other grandma and like my nieces. And I'm like, oh no, that's not, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that. And then now, like with Twitter and like woke people and like the concept of like generational conditioning, it's really, people are talking about it now, but for these moments, like when I first started rapping, I was so ready to just say anything that wasn't supposed to come out of my mouth for the sake of shock factor. But it wasn't to just like shock people. It was to say, you can't tell me what to say. And women, South Asian women, we're not allowed to have sex. We're not allowed to date, but then they expect you to be married and all these things. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sexually active and I'm not married. And do I tell my parents that? No. But you can't pretend to live in this like sheltered world. And then for me, I was just wanting to just tell everybody who told me no, or people who even just think that about other people. Sometimes my voice is like a vessel for myself. And then sometimes it is a vessel, a catalyst for other change. And even if it has nothing to do with me, but I feel like everything has everything to do with everything.
Do want to thank Horsepower, for joining us here on the show. We're gonna have to bring you back. I feel like we gotta do like more.
Yeah.
We gotta peel back the piece of garlic even further.
Yeah, I like garlic. Let's peel the garlic. The onion's a good concept, but I think we could go, they say 2 cloves, I say 4.
Oh, okay.
I put too much garlic in my food. And I actually was just cooking with garlic before this phone call.
Oh, so you got the finger smell? Yeah. It's always funny, like, especially like if I'm cooking dinner and I put like an actual like garlic clove in there, and then like you go to sleep, and no matter how much soap you use, like the stench does not leave your fingers.
Yeah, it's like this sweetness. Then I'm like staring at this image of me with the garlic, and I'm like, oh, this is very. This is like a very
sensory overload. Yeah. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Who would have thought on
Zoom? Thanks so much for joining us on New Theory Radio. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's Horsepower. Go check out Lil Miss Canada on all streaming services. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to have more New Theory Radio in just a few moments.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
To me, being Canadian means being a duck carver. It's a little bit of a challenge living in a condo, but we're making it work. Basically, a requirement for us Canadian guys, a home workshop. Doubles up as a pantry sometimes. It's a sanctuary for me to get away from it all.
Amu, pass me a bag of rice.
Whoa, men at work, yaar.
Welcome back to New Theory Radio here live on Newstalk Saga 960 AM. This is the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. My name is Nav Nanwa. I'm your host. And the clip you just heard comes from my next guest. He is a Canadian singer, a songwriter, and actor. Born and raised in Montreal, the co-lead singer for the award-winning South Asian fusion band Josh. And he currently stars as Amandeep on the duck carving CBC comedy series Decoys. It is my good friend Rup May-gone. Rup, what's going on, buddy?
How you doing, my friend? If I can get an introduction like that every morning, I'd be a very happy person. Thank you.
Hey, man, just call me. Yes. Just call me and I'll just do it. Man, I got to talk to you about Decoys, man. I binged it yesterday. You are absolutely hilarious throughout the entire show. But for all the listeners that aren't familiar, what is Decoys all about?
Decoys is a new show on CBC Gem, which is basically all about duck carving. It is a sport or a pastime or a hobby that's very, very prevalent in the Canadian culture, in the underground Canadian culture, that a lot of us, especially the younger generation, don't know about. But it's only obvious when you realize that there's a duck on our dollar coin. Oh. And, it's a very important thing to Canadians. And the show is about 5 different carvers who take the hobby perhaps a little too seriously. Amandeep, my character, has come from India. He's a new immigrant to the country, and he connects directly with duck carving, and it's the first time that he truly feels Canadian.
Yeah, and he loves mac and cheese.
He does. He does everything he possibly can to be Canadian, and it's endearing. Actually, when I read the character for the first time, I was really happy to see that it wasn't that that slapstick Asian that's going to be in like part of the cast.
Yeah,
he's got a real sense of the Canadian culture and takes it to heart.
Yeah, he definitely does. And what I love about your character Amandeep is the dynamic with Simran, his wife. Like Simran's there for the comic relief. She's there to, really support him, but at the same time, just kind of questioning what the hype is around duck carving. And how would you describe that relationship?
It's one of those relationships where she just doesn't get it, and I think it's like that with a lot of different artists. right? If you're a musician and your spouse, works a 9 to 5, there's always going to be that difference of opinion, perhaps, when it comes to what's more important in life. Is it to get that check every 2 weeks, or is it to be the artiste and just to get, to make a change in the world? And I think that's what their relationship is about, where Simran is a little bit more, I wouldn't say savvy, but she's just a little bit more, what's the word, man? She just likes to be a little bit more real.
Yeah.
And says, listen, all this is great, but where's it really going to take you? Just get yourself a decent job, So it's one of those things. So, I was just going to give the end away, but I'm not going to, because if anybody wants to watch the show, I think, it's free. It's online. You just go to gem.cbc.ca and check it out.
Yeah, I got through it in an hour, and it was a fun hour. I was very much intrigued by it. For anyone who's a fan of The Office, it has the same Office style vibe to it in regards to, I guess, the faux reality show and the interviews. But man, your character is definitely a standout. And to your point, I really do enjoy the diversity, because when for new immigrants here in Canada, a lot of them do have the mindset where they want to adapt, or they want to get a sense of Canadian culture and be able to embrace it and really understand it. And I find that your character does a great job of doing that.
Thank you. I think that it's really important for immigrants to understand the culture in Canada. Guys like perhaps yourself, myself, we were born here, so it's a little bit easier. But when you have somebody that's come directly from Punjab, their entire life is turned upside down.
Yeah.
What they knew was what was cool is not cool anymore, and what was really weird is the cool thing. And so, when Amandeep says, I was depressed at first, and I'd go to the pond to feed the ducks, he's literally mind blasted when he realized that these guys were not only sketching ducks at the pond, but they were carving them.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? And so just little things like that. And of course, he then becomes duck carver and needs that wood workshop, because he thinks every good Canadian has a wood workshop in his house. I mean, I don't, but I know a lot of guys that do. And yeah, man, thanks for watching it and supporting, man. It really means a lot.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. And again, I think now more so than ever, being that we're glued to our screens, why not support some awesome Canadian content and support wonderful actors like yourself? I got to ask you, man, you're knowing your background in the movie that you starred in, you have a lot of diverse range in what you've done in your career. But how did you prepare for a role like this? Did you actually take up duck carving?
I didn't. No.
Okay.
The story with this role is that they had actually they wanted a turban Sikh for the role.
Okay.
Instead of finding somebody that perhaps looked brown, for lack of better words, and then tied a turban on him, they wanted the real deal, Ali McBeal. And so they actually went around and did quite a few auditions before they landed on me. And when I sent in the audition, Nav, we as Josh, my band, we travel to the Indian subcontinent a lot.
Yeah.
We're there almost every month, pre-COVID, of course. And when we go out there, you really get a sense of how people live. You get a sense of their accent. You get a sense of, what's cool, what's in, what's not. And I think that going there over the years, maybe 10 years now, it was just in me. And so there wasn't a lot of prep. I mean, I had to study duck carving and understand what it was. I didn't really actually carve a duck, but it was more important for me to understand who Amandeep was. And so I was able to get that, I think, and that's where, the writers and the producers, actually really took notice. And you did mention earlier about The Office. David Pellick, who's the showrunner and the writer and the lead of the show, he used to also assist on writing The Office.
Oh, excellent!
So we have some serious writers on the show, and it's one of those Canadian shows that I really think is going to take the U.S. by surprise, kind of like Schitt's Creek, Kim's Convenience right now, Rocking, Working Moms. So we're really hoping that, it goes south of the border and Canadian content gets more recognition.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm hoping for a second season, man, because I think there's a lot more story that can be told, especially for Amandeep and where things left off. So, man, congratulations. You're one of the hardest working people that I know, and I'm very, very happy for you. Well, what's next for Rup, man? Obviously, you're not traveling to India with Q when it comes to Josh, but anything else that you're working on that you want to quickly plug?
Yeah, I'm working on a solo album, believe it or not. After 20 years of being in a duo.
Yeah, okay.
I'm working on a solo album. It's called Disrupt. And I'm very, very nervous, actually, about that. Because when you're making music with somebody else for your entire career, you don't know who you are when you do it on your own. And so we've, my producers and I have sort of come up with this really cool Sufi Punjabi funk.
Ooh, I like
that is going to be very, very unique and different. And like I said, it makes me nervous, but hey, that's what we do, right? As artists, we put our heart out on the plate and just wait for it to be judged.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I know it's going to be awesome. And we'll bring you back to talk about that, because that to me already sounds really intriguing. So Rup, man, always a pleasure talking to us. My good friend Rup May-gone. Go check out Go check out Decoys on CBC Gem. You're not going to be disappointed. It's a fantastic watch, and I definitely enjoyed it. And we are going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with more New Theory Radio in just a few moments.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
Welcome back to New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. This is the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and I'm loving the vibes we have going on in the studio right now. The sounds you're hearing are courtesy of my next guest. They are a Juno-nominated Afro-Cuban jazz blending ensemble known for songs that have to do with immigration, courage, and love. Having worked with the likes of Lido Pimenta and Bamba Estero, their sophomore album Espiral comes out on October 9th. It is the wonderful Okan, and joining me on the line is one half of the group, and that's Elizabeth Rodriguez. Elizabeth, how are you?
I am very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the vibes, I'm loving them. I'm loving them.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And Max is here close by, but thank you so much for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. The music itself just makes me want to go to an all-inclusive. It makes me really want to go to Havana, badly. I'm not liking the cold weather. I'm not liking the quarantine.
It's a whole different point of view for us.
Well, actually, that's probably a good start. What brought you and your partner together to create Okan?
Running away from a dictatorship. Let's start with that.
Oh.
It's just, it's a thing that Cubans do, trying to get as far as possible from Cuba, even though it is a wonderful country and invites you with a nice weather and palm trees.
Mm-hmm. And both of you have very impressive accolades. You yourself are a classically trained violist, and you've served as the concert master for Havana's Youth Orchestra. Your partner, is it Magdalis?
Magdalis.
Yeah, Magdalis has a background in orchestral percussion. How do both of you go about tapping into those backgrounds when it comes to putting your music together?
Well, honestly, it is very easy because after doing that for so many years, it's something that is within our blood now, right? We grew up listening to all kinds of music, but we were also trained very high quality training in classical music. My teacher, for example, was a Russian violinist, and her teachers as well. And we are just using whatever we learned over the years, because we went to school there for, 15 years doing music since we were very little. Mm-hmm. It's very easy for us to write music together, since I just usually do the lyrics and kind of the structure of the song, and then Mags makes a crazy, super cool arrangement because she has this percussion background. Mm-hmm. So it works very easily for us.
Yeah, it's a match made in heaven, right? It's just one of those things that once you have that working relationship, the sky is definitely the limit. And Espiral is a follow-up to your full-length album, Sombras, which was nominated for a Juno. Tell me more about the sophomore release.
Well, this one, it is extremely heavy. The whole song, as you just heard, the beginning of that song is very percussion, a lot of percussion, and we dig a little bit more into our Afro-Cuban roots. We're both Afro-Cuban, and we love our culture and all the things that our ancestors left us. So we're trying to bring that back to life here and just mixing it with the world that we have here now after living in Canada for 7 years. You still mix, you meet a lot of people. For example, we have influences from Brazil as well, because we have a lot of Brazilian friends. There is one song that it is influenced by Turkish music, because Max, when she got here, she was working with a Turkish community. So it is the reason why it's called Espiral, which means spiral. It is just because it goes around so many different places and colors and images of other cultures, and also within our own culture. There are so many different genres that people don't play anymore. So that's why it's called Spiral.
Heritage, storytelling, and spirituality are a big part of what Okan does, and you definitely touched on it just now. Well, why are these things so important to you?
Well, because when you realize that you're so far away from home, you have to go back to hold on to something, right? It's very important. Many other cultures do that here. Everybody stays. Maybe if you weren't that religious in your country, once you get here, you're like, wait a second, I do have something, and it is very special, and it's mine, and this is what I know. So somehow life just throws you that way to hold on to something with faith. It doesn't matter what religion it is, and I think it's very important that people believe in something. I don't condemn anything else, like whatever you believe in, that's great. As long as humans have faith, I think we're going to thrive.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what you got till it's gone, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And you know what? I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Okan, you and Mags are powerhouse when it comes to local fashion. You've collaborated with local designers here in Toronto, like My Mama's Closet. How important is it to extend what you're doing with the music into other avenues? Because even this collaboration with My Mama's Closet, you were able to take, was it Afro textile designs, and we're able to bring those to the forefront. Like, why is that a big part of what Okan does?
Well, first of all, one of our big missions is to support other women in the business, in the music business, but in other industries. And we stumbled upon this Nigerian woman that has been here in Canada also for a few years, and she's so talented, so talented, and so fast. You go to her house today and you walk out with 2 or 3 things that she just made there. Right on the spot.
Give me your number, please.
Exactly. And also because Nigeria is the culture that we have in Cuba, it comes from Nigeria, right? The Africans that came from Nigeria. So somehow we're so close to each other, our cultures, and we inherited that. So it's kind of like, for us, it's going back to the actual roots. It goes beyond to what we got in Cuba. We're trying to go as far as possible back to our ancestors. So it just worked out to be a great collaboration, and we've been working with her ever since, for a few years now. And she's amazing. She's incredible.
That's awesome.
Supporting women is our mission, for sure.
Oh, 100%. And we need to, and nothing's better than really supporting those that are based here locally, because it's a tough time for everyone, right? Everyone needs some help right now. So, and I love it. I love that you and Mags are really doing that and working with My Mama's Closet in that fashion. The new single that we just heard off the top is Mercedes, which we just played. It features Telmary Diaz. How did this track come to be?
Well, this track was a lot of fun. We did it here in Canada, and Telmaris was actually in Cuba at the time, so we have to finish it here and send it to her, and she recorded it. And when she is an amazing Cuban rapper. She is actually Canadian citizen now, and she is so incredible. We grew up listening to her music, even though she's not that much older than us. We grew up listening to her, and it was such an honor for us to have her on our CD. She has supported our band also from the beginning, and again, supporting women in the industry, it is important to us, so that's why we call her. And we let her, that's something that we do in Okan, is the musicians that we play with, we brought them the proposal, and then they can do whatever they want with their own vision, their own language, and that's how the music just gets together. And she gave us that proposal. We didn't ask her to do anything specifically. She just did what she does, and it just turned out to be an amazing thing. Another guest on that single is El Maestro Hilario Duran, which is a Cuban pianist that has been here in Canada for over 20 years. He's a professor at Humber College. He's an amazing pianist that everybody should know about. And that's why that song is so like fiery. It has a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it's definitely fire, and honestly, it's that energy boost that you need on Sunday morning, right?
Definitely. When you woke up with those drums.
Yeah, exactly. Just to finish up here, what's next for Okan? We got the sophomore release, Espiral, coming out on October 9th. What else is going on with you and Megs?
Well, we're planning on that same October 9th release our first music video. That it will be it's from Espiral, and it's going to be beautiful because it's our first one, and we're very excited. We are also planning on doing a live performance on Facebook, so stay tuned for that because we're just coordinating that right now. And you can visit on our website okanmusica.com. So you can find out what else we're going to be doing.
Awesome. Elizabeth, thanks so much for calling in and letting us know what's going on. That's Elizabeth Rodriguez from Okan. Go support their amazing sophomore album, which is coming out on October 9th, called Espiral. Go listen to their track Mercedes, which I believe is available on all streaming platforms.
Thank you so much.
And we are going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to have more New Theory Radio here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on arts and pop culture. And this actually concludes this week's edition of New Theory Radio. So thank you all for tuning in. Big thank you to my guests, Horsepower, Rup May-gone, as well as Okan. We had Elizabeth Rodriguez just now talking about their sophomore album, which comes out on October 9th. If you want to connect with us, it is at New Theory Radio on all social platforms. If you want to connect with me, it is at Nav Nanwa on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to connect with Saga 960 AM, it is at Saga 960 AM across all platforms. Big shout outs to my little brother Amit Nanwa for being in the studio, for doing our graphics and our photography. Big shout outs to the wizard behind the boards, Jyoti Pandu, for helping us out, and for me providing her a coffee because I don't think she would have gone through the show. And that's a wrap for another week. So thank you again for tuning in, and you will hear all of us next time. Peace.
Missed part of the show or the whole show? Go to saga960am.ca to find the podcast.
Introducing touch-free payments from PayPal, a safe way for your customers to pay. Whether you're a market seller,
I'll take 2 tomatoes and a cucumber,
poodle pamperer, piano tuner, or plumber. Signing up to accept touch-free payments for your business is easy. Simply download the PayPal app and display your own unique QR code for your customers to scan. Touch-free QR code payments. No seller fees until 2021. Not applicable to PayPal Here transactions. Other fees may apply. Shop safe with PayPal.